Hi everyone, welcome back to a day in our Kyoto, Japan trip. Today in this vlog, our main objective is to try good quality matcha and get some matcha souvenirs. Some of you might have heard that there is currently a global matcha shortage due to a variety of factors, with some being like the growing demand for matcha, the shortage of the leaves, and just the general increased tourism in Japan. In order to be mindful and help to decrease overconsumption, we decided that we wanted to go taste matcha in a tea room cafe first and only buy the matcha that we were able to finish. For this reason, we're boarding the bus over to Ippodo, one of the main matcha stores in Kyoto. So we got off the bus and now we're walking over to the Ippodo's main branch. I didn't know this at the time, but when I checked the websites when I came back afterwards, it said that Ippodo has been operating in Kyoto since 1717, so a very long time. It's a very reputable traditional tea house, and it's not to be confused with another store called Ippodo, which is the ramen chain that sounds very similar. It was a very nice experience because this store is located from a different area than our hotel, so we had time just to walk around and see the different buildings too, because it does look different from the traditional Kyoto buildings as well too. This is much more modernized and more residential from what I found. So here we are, we arrived at the Ippodo's main store branch. As you can see, this is the entrance. There are three main things in this area. One is the store section where you can purchase the matcha itself. They have a lot of variety of things from matcha, senchas, gyokuros, and more. There is also eventually a takeout option as well here too, that you can just get matcha to go. But we chose to specifically come here because we wanted to go to the tea room, because we wanted to taste how the matcha would taste in the traditional setting. So this tea room is called the Kaboku Tearoom. You can see the price of the options before you head in, so you can see if it is something that you want to do. It is definitely a little bit more pricier compared to the matcha lattes that you can get compared to a cafe setting, but we found that this was a really good value for us because we got to taste the difference between Koicha and Usucha by coming to this cafe. This is also a super beautiful cafe. It looks very traditional. It has a nice Japanese garden in between, and all the interior has these nice wooden features, and even the plates and the bowls, everything looks so nice and nicely textured as well too. So it was just an overall very nice experience. And here is the first koicha that we experienced in Kyoto. Since we were in Ippodo's main branch in Kyoto, we decided to get both the Kyoto-Exclusive for both the Koicha and the Usucha. As you can see over here, the Koicha is very, very thick, and this is actually the traditional matcha that they use for the matcha ceremonies. Both of these matcha drinks each came with their own tea confection that's also known as wagashi. I have a theory that they have a different wagashi depending on the perceived bitterness of each drink. And then this is us starting off the tea matcha tasting. In this section here, I'm showing you the texture differences between the two different matchas. In the very beginning, I showed you the thick, darker green koicha, and this is the lighter texture usucha that we have mainly in water. I don't think we added milk into this matcha latte here. We really wanted to just taste the individual matcha to see if we would like it enough for us to finish the whole batch by ourselves at home. And surprisingly, we actually did like both of them. Surprisingly, the koicha, which had a thicker consistency, was a pretty good palate cleanser introduction thing that we experienced. So it was cool enough that we wanted to bring some back to share with our rest of our family. It was a very interesting flavor too, because it ended almost with a little bit of a seaweed type of taste, which maybe doesn't sound the best, but it was very grassy in a good way. Not like the seafoody part of seaweed, but the grassy part of seaweed, if you understand what that could be. And this is John starting to add some more water. They say that after you had a first taste of the koicha, they'll bring you the water so you can whisk it yourself. And this is us trying to use the techniques that we learned yesterday during the kimono and matcha tea ceremony experience. As you can see here, John is whisking really fast, and then eventually at the end, he'll start to incorporate all of the dark green so it's a little bit more palatable and drinkable. Definitely with the thicker consistency, you can taste a lot more, but it's almost, if I can compare, it's kind of like a thicker, almost pudding-like a consistency. And then when you whisk it with more water, it still retains a lot of that natural koicha taste, but just goes down your throat more easily. And then eventually when John finishes here, We'll look at the end of the whisk because we learned from the matcha ceremony yesterday that if you whisked it really well, you should actually see a little bubble at the very end. But it was only our second time whisking it properly, so not too much pressure on John here. But yeah, you can see a lot of the nice foaming texture at the top, which is only possible if you're able to whisk it well. It actually requires a lot of technique, and it took me a while for me to improve it still, and I'm still kind of working on it. So definitely an experience to do here if you have never done it before in the past. And then you can see if you compare the two bowls, now they kind of look a little bit more similar now that we've added a little bit more water in. And then you can either drink it up as is, or you could add a little bit more cream, but I heard that it's probably better to have it as is, just so you can actually taste the koicha differences. You kind of dilute the value of the more expensive koicha by putting it in a latte. And here John is trying to show you the end here because he's trying to look for the bubble that I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit harder to make on your second try. And now John is going to try his hard work to see how the koicha tastes. You can see that he is processing it, and it's definitely a lot more drinkable. I remember that John had a little bit of a face in the beginning as he first tried koicha because it was just so different from what we've ever had in the past before. But because of that, you can really taste the difference and appreciate the difference in value that the koicha brings compared to the usucha. Here I am probably processing and explaining the differences as well too, because it was just so different. I can't quite explain it well because I'm not a matcha connoisseur, but I think just the sheer amount of wonder and confusion and surprise that we experienced was enough for us to recommend this experience for others to go to, because in a typical matcha cafe setting where you just order matcha to go or matcha to drink in stores, they typically wouldn't use koicha in the drinks because it's definitely lowers down the value of it when you put it in milk, and typically they won't source it in the matcha drinks either because it is more expensive. But you really get to taste and understand why people have it in a tea ceremony type of situation with the koicha compared to the usucha if they want. And definitely accompanied with the wagashi, it makes it definitely very palatable and tastes almost healthy in a way, which I think matcha is supposed to be. Yeah, and here's, I think, John trying to take a little bit of the wagashi and having it together with the matcha. And here he can kind of see that it does taste better with the wagashi. And here I am explaining a little bit more about the wagashi as well too. Because in this experience, if you see a little peek of the pink triangle, that is actually the nama yatsuhashi, which is the pink triangle mochi type of situation, which typically has red bean on the inside, or a type of bean that is in a more paste type of consistency. It was so good from this experience that we actually decided to pick some up as souvenirs. You can actually find this mochi type of souvenir all throughout in Kyoto, and typically only in Kyoto too, or the duty-free store, because it is a specialty of Kyoto. The one thing to keep in mind with is that it doesn't really last long. So I think within the period that we bought it back, we had to eat it within the next week or so. So if you're thinking of bringing that back as a souvenir, you definitely have to think about who you're going to be seeing within the next 2 weeks. Because if you're seeing them anytime longer than that, you're unfortunately not going to be able to enjoy the mochi, most likely because it will harden before then. But yeah, here we are enjoying a little bit. The other wagashi that I had in the beginning was the red bean wagashi, which I think was nice when the koicha wasn't super diluted, because it is definitely a heavy sweet kicker. So if you like things that are very, very sweet, then you will like the almost chestnut looking red bean wagashi that I have on my side here. But yeah, here's kind of the nice shots that you can get in this cafe because they have so many nice green wooden color. And I'm just so amazed by how thick the matcha is that I'm showing it to you again. Yeah, this was definitely an experience that made us think a lot. But now that we have some of this at home, we are super excited to share this experience with our family members as well too, because I think they will start to appreciate how different it really is when they can see it side by side. And then we've actually been able to recreate how thick this koicha is as well too, so you don't have to worry about that when you bring it home. And then alongside matcha, you can also buy other tea souvenirs as well as a whisk and other supplies you would need to make matcha as well too. So we actually only ended up buying matcha from this store because we didn't actually think we needed any more after buying all these matchas. So we bought these 4 because we knew that we were able to drink it, as well as our family members will be able to partake in it as well too. All of these are to be used within a couple of months because they start to lose their potency and the matcha green color by then. So you really have to think twice if you want to buy any for souvenirs, because you want to be sure you can give them off to any friends or family before they start to expire. And then this is also a really good experience because we only spent 6,480 yen for all of this, which if you're in North America, you would know that good quality matcha costs much more than this, unfortunately. So yeah, only really buy matchas if you think you'll be able to drink it. If you're not sure, I highly recommend you checking out a traditional tea house like we did over here. Taste it, see if you like it, see if you're able to drink it. And if so, purchase it. If not, maybe think twice about getting it just to help with the overconsumption of matcha. If you want to see more of our Japan adventures, please like, follow, and subscribe. We'll see you all again next time. Alright, take care. Bye.